Hey everybody, it's Jochen Hayden, and I'm back with another tutorial for War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. It's been a while since I've made one, but this is one that's been bugging me for a while that I really wanted to make. And it's about SIGINT, particularly from the Japanese perspective and how you could manage it better. Because a lot of you Japanese players are self-snitching on yourselves. Yeah, you. You're telling the enemy everything they need to know before you even get there. Let me explain. First of all, we probably need to discuss what is SIGINT. SIGINT stands for Signals Intelligence. And as Japanese, you get garbage for SIGINT. This is a typical SIGINT report for the Japanese player. As you can see, it is absolutely useless. It tells you that there's some radio transmission somewhere, and that's basically it. Occasionally, you'll get something like this. Heavy volume of radio transmissions detected at Pearl Harbor. Oh, really? What is that? Oh, gee. You don't say. There's a lot of aircraft there and there's some ships there. Gee, that's very helpful. Every now and then, you might get something a little bit better, where it even gives you maybe a plane or a ship count, but that's very rare. This is the best you're typically going to get as a Japanese player. Now, let me tell you, if you're an Allied player, it's a very different story. Let's take a look at an example of what they get to see every turn. Look at this. This is a typical Allied SIGINT report that they get every turn. It tells them locations of radio signals, what units are where, what units are planning for attacks at different places. Let me see. Number 3. Okay, 89th Naval Guard Unit is planning for an attack on Johnston Island. Imperial Guards Division is planning for an attack on Paoshan. Not only that, it tells the Allied player what units are loaded on what ships and going to where. This is devastating information for the Allied player, or actually for you as the Japanese player, because it tells them everything. It tells them what units are where, how many troops are there, what units are loaded on what ships, and where they're going. That's not good, okay? And a lot of Japanese players don't realize that they're giving this information away. And I got a little secret for you. You don't have to. Or, if you want to, you can turn this against the Allied player and put it in your favor. So in this video, again, targeting the Japanese player primarily, but an Allied player can learn from this too, because you're going to get abused when I'm done with this. I'm going to show you how you can A, avoid doing this, or 2, use it against the enemy in your favor. So, first thing I want to point out to you is that there are some things you simply cannot stop, i.e. a report about what units are located at what base. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to prevent that. So, if you're going to move a unit to a base and you don't want the Allies to know, what you can do is prevent them from knowing that it's coming in advance. What you cannot do is keep them from knowing that it's there once you've already delivered it. But typically in that case, it's not as damaging if you've already got done what you needed to get done with that unit, right? So, back to the map. What are some things that you can do as a Japanese player to manage signals intelligence in your favor? Well, here's the first thing that I would recommend. Be careful what you're doing. All right, now, you saw there was a report here that showed that a particular unit was loaded on a particular ship moving to a base. There is a way as a Japanese player where you can keep this ever being reported to the Allies, okay? So let me explain. This is a turn file from my Italian campaign, and this is March 1st, so a month and some days behind the campaign. At this point in the campaign, I'm about to land several divisions behind Brisbane, okay, at this little base called Coffs Harbour. And I'm going to land these units here and come in behind him and block Brisbane off from a retreat path back to Sydney. Okay, I have several divisions and quite a few units in this setup, right? Let me show you something special here. Do you see this? You notice how there's no final destination, i.e. a base? So, when you do this as the Japanese player, this will not trigger that SIGINT hit like this. Here, let me circle it. Something like this. See this? If there's no base destination for your task force, it will not tell the Allied player that this unit is loaded on this ship going to a base, because it's not going to a base, it's going to an open ocean hex, and that does not trigger a SIGINT hit. You know how I know this works? Italian, my opponent, some months ago was asking me, hey, I think there's something wrong with my SIGINT. I'm not getting anything out of it. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, typically I get a report that a ship has troops loaded and is going to this particular base, and I haven't seen a single one of those messages for the entire campaign. And I kind of chuckled to myself and I said, well, that's not an accident, big boy. So that's how you do it. So here's what I recommend to you guys. If you want to move troops on ships and you don't want the Allies to know where they're going until it's too late, do this. You're going to set a open ocean hex that is not the final destination. And what I typically do is I'll put them on remain on station. So even if I forget to set the destination, this task force will sit here and wait for the final order to go here, but it won't go backwards. And then the turn before I want them to land, I would go in and change the destination to the base I want it to go to. Now, obviously, this is too far out. This would take two plus turns until they could land, and he could get a SIGINT hit that they're on the way. So you don't want to do this until the turn before they're within range to land. Oh, hold on. Anyway, yeah, you don't want to do this until the turn before they land, because at that point, it's way too late. They've already landed, and he had no time to react to it. All right? In this particular situation, he never saw it coming because he was not running naval search particularly well. So he never knew they were there. And we completely surprised him. And this ultimately led to us taking Brisbane and Sydney and flanking this entire Allied stack, because he never knew we were coming. If I had set the destination to Coffs Harbour when this task force was a week away or more, he would know that we're doing this, and he probably would have pulled chocks and immediately retreated, because he would know that he's getting flanked. He never had the chance. So, as Japanese player, don't set destinations for loaded ships until the turn before they go. And that applies not just to offensive operations, but for routine operations. I'll give you another example. Let's say I wanted to move here. Let's put a task force together and pretend we're going to move something, right? I want to move some anti-aircraft guns down to Rabaul. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and load up some units, okay? I'm loading up 4 anti-aircraft units. I want these 4 units to be relocated to Rabaul, but I don't want him to know that they're coming. This will take a week and a half to 2 weeks for these guys to get there. So here's what you're going to do. You'll take your task force, all right? What I do is I set the home port to the destination. Then I will set the destination of the task force maybe about right there, okay? So what that's going to do is the ship's going to sail all the way across the ocean, and he'll have no hits about it. It won't say what unit's loaded on board. It won't say where it's going because there's no destination set. And then when the task force gets to here, it's automatically going to go to the home port, right? Boom. And then that next turn, those units drop and land at Rabaul. Now, eventually, his SIGINT is going to tell him that that unit is located there. But by that time, it's already too late. I've already moved it. And hopefully we caught him off guard. And let's say he sends in 4-engine bombers in here thinking there's no AAA there. And now all of a sudden there's a bunch there. We have a chance to do damage here, right? What I'm saying here is that don't give the enemy any information they don't deserve. Stop self-snitching. That's how you do it. Okay, so now we've talked about how to avoid you getting that type of SIGINT hit where the Allies know where your troops are going before they even go. Don't do that. But sometimes you may want the Allies to know you're going somewhere, or you want them to think you're going somewhere that you're not. Now, that is called SIGINT spoofing. Now, both sides can do this, but it doesn't really benefit the Allies at all to do it because Japanese SIGINT isn't really capable of deducing when something is inbound, right? So here's what I would do for that. Here's how you SIGINT spoof. Let's say, and I'm just going to use this as a rough example. I want to land at Coffs Harbour, but I want him to think we're landing at Port Augusta. check out this cool little move you can do here. So what you do, you'll go here and set your destination to Port Augusta. Okay. But what you're going to do along the way is you're going to set a waypoint for where you really want to go. Okay. So what's going to happen is these ships are going to sail along, and because the destination is Port Augusta, the SIGINT, the nonsense SIGINT that the Allies get, is going to tell him that this division on this ship is moving to Port Augusta. So what's going to happen here? The Allied players are going to go, holy crap, there's a division coming to Port Augusta. We need to reinforce that right away. So he's going to start pulling ships, troops, planes, and relocate them over there for the incoming invasion. Meanwhile, this task force is going to keep coming down the road and stop here, and maybe when it gets to about here, you change the order at the last second and have it go here. Meanwhile, your enemy has already started relocating troops to Port Augusta, planes, everything. You land here and he's completely out of position. And you can do this 100 hexes out, 200 hexes out, and it could take weeks to get there. And meanwhile, your enemy player is relocating based on that SIGINT hit, right? There's no way he would know that you just spoofed him. So that's a very powerful tool. Let me explain to you how that got me in my very first campaign against Lodric. So I was playing as the Allies, right? Lodric, I was defending Burma, and he never really came after Rangoon. So I had a pretty powerful force here. I had about 1,000 AV sitting at Rangoon because he hadn't come after me. I get a SIGINT hit that the Japanese are landing at Mole Mine. Okay. I'm like, holy crap. That's not good. I need to start moving troops down here right away. I need to start moving planes to Rangoon to repel this invasion, right? It said 5th Division loaded on a transport heading to Mole Mine. And I start panicking. And I start moving things around. I actually had an attack going towards Bangkok. I pulled it backwards to go back to Mole Mine. All right. Now, about a week later, I get completely blindsided. A massive enemy fleet lands at Trincomalee. And I'm like, and one of the units that was on there was 5th Division. But I was like, wait a minute, I don't understand. How the 5th Division said it was loaded and going to Mole Mine. How did it end at Trincomalee? What happened was, Lodric spoofed me. He set the destination as Mole Mine, but had a waypoint going to Trincomalee. So I was over here thinking they're coming this way. I have all these assets moving there. I'm recalling an attack on Bangkok. I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff to prepare to repel invaders. Meanwhile, that task force goes around this way and lands at Trincomalee. I got spoofed. He got me. I didn't know better, but I want you to know better. So there you go. Let me see. Was there anything else you need to know about SIGINT? Well, again, know as a Japanese, your SIGINT sucks and you're rarely going to get any use out of it. Once every blue moon, you might get radio transmissions detected and you'll get a hex that's somewhere out here in the ocean, right? A lot of times I'll see them around here. That's basically telling you that there's an enemy task force moving around here, but you'll be hard-pressed to determine a destination, a composition, a speed, anything about that. You'll just know that there are ships moving in this general area. That's about the best you're going to get. But the Allies get to see it all. So, hopefully this video helped you determine what you should and should not be doing with your SIGINT, okay? Don't give away any information that the Allies don't need to know. All right, one last point I'll make to you before we go. It's along the lines of SIGINT spoofing again. 1 second. Okay, here we go. There's one last thing you can do to spoof the Allies in addition to the task force and the waypoint thing. Do you see this? This is a good one. This is more of the nonsense SIGINT that the Allies get that just makes this game so biased against the Japanese. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, 6th Air Defense Regiment is planning for an attack on Shemiya Island. Okay? They get to know when you have a unit planning for an attack somewhere. Okay? Now, that could be a bad thing for you, or that could be a good thing for you. Let me explain further. For example, let's say I have this unit here. Let's just pretend it's a division. Okay, 6 base force. Pretend it's a division. Set future objective, Colombo. Okay, you know where Colombo's at, right? It's over here on Ceylon. So what I was doing to Italian in his campaign was I had set a number of my divisions pointing towards Colombo. Okay, I had most of my divisions set for landings here and Calcutta. Okay, I did that on purpose because I knew that the Allies were going to get SIGINT hits explaining that I had a division planning for an attack on Calcutta, Ceylon. So what that did was it made Italian think that we were going for an India operation here. Now, at this point in the campaign, I think he kind of figured out that we're not anymore because I was already moving into Brisbane, right? Normally when you go for Brisbane, you're going for Australia. But up until that point, he was fully convinced, I believe, that we were going for India because I had so many divisions set to land on Ceylon and Calcutta. At least they were planning for that. And he was getting those SIGINT hits. Now, how do I know that that's the case? Well, if we look at how the campaign has ended up going, there's only one British division in all of India and a couple Indian brigades down here. The bulk of the Allied forces that I'm now encountering in the campaign are here. Okay. He has lots of aircraft here. And I believe he started front-loading India months ago because my SIGINT was telling him that I was going here. I had no units planning for an invasion of Australia. They were all pointing towards India. And now we're seeing a huge amount of troops in India moving in towards Burma right now, okay? And Australia is basically barren. Like, it's only the Australian army and a couple small British units there. The rest of everything is here, to include American squadrons, American planes. All that stuff is in India because he thought we were going there because I spoofed him into it. So keep that in mind. The Japanese don't really need to plan for invasions for the first 5 months. They get the amphibious landing bonus. So whether or not they're planning for Calcutta or Ceylon, but they land in Brisbane, it doesn't really affect their unload rates or the amount of casualties they take. You get that bonus as Japan for the first 5 months. So the planning isn't necessary to execute an amphibious invasion that doesn't cost you a lot of casualties. So use that to your advantage. After this point, if you want to still be offensive after May 1st, you're going to want to plan for wherever you're going to amphibiouusly invade as Japan, or you're going to take huge losses, just like the Allies will if they try to do that. But you don't need to worry about that for the first 5 months. So trick your opponent. If you want to go to Australia, point all your big units towards India. If you want to go to India, point all your big units to Australia. Make him think you're going to invade Australia, which may convince him to not send unit reinforcements here, but to send reinforcements here, leaving you a potentially easier time of invading where you really want to go. So, SIGINT spoofing with planning, SIGINT spoofing with destinations and waypoints, and not putting final destinations on your task forces that are loaded with troops are things you can do as the Allied player, or correction, as the Japanese player, that will cause a lot of consternation and frustration for the Allies and take away that ridiculous advantage that they get in the form of this kind of SIGINT. We don't want this, okay? I want 75% of what's on this report to be fake news, okay? Fake news. And you have control over that as a Japanese player, to some extent. If you have any questions about this, please leave a comment in the video down in the comment section. Come over to my Discord. I'll be happy to give you a masterclass on SIGINT and deception, because I've been doing it for a while and I know it works because my campaign is showing the results. Catch you on the next one.